Okay, so today I'm going to be bringing you guys a one-shot skill power build, which is featuring the Seeker Mine currently, but there are a couple additions and ways to make the build better and feature different skills that I'll go over in a second. So the first thing to talk about is the 3-piece Tactician. This could easily be 4-piece. Now, I don't personally have a set of Tactician's gloves that are going to work right now. I could easily spend a few more hours farming them up, but it's a really, really simple addition. It's very linear, because if you look here and read the Tactician's bonus, you get 10% skill haste for the 2-piece, very important for the build. You get 10% skill power for the 3-piece, again, very important for the build. And then for the 4-piece, which is really only going to be valuable in group play, not so much in solo play, is going to be every bullet your group hit enemies with adds 0.2% skill power to you for a max of 30% bonus. Bonus disappears after 10 seconds of not being updated or after 10 seconds at full power. So what this is really going to do is only be helpful for you in a group play setting. However, since you will be using an LVOA with an extremely high rate of fire over here at 850, it will at least get some utility out of solo play if you do opt to run the 4-piece Tactician bonus. Right now I'm only on 3 because I don't have the parts, but that's an easy addition to add a little bit more validity to the build. So let's talk about my tac bonuses, then my high ends, then my weapons, then the skills, why I'm using what I'm using, etc. So for the mask, I have a stamina mask. You're not going to run all complete electronics. You're actually a little bit of a hybrid build. And I know some people will say that 195 toughness is super squishy. I'll get melted really fast, but that's not actually quite the case. There's a couple of mechanics I'll be using in order to make my toughness significantly higher, which I'll demonstrate in a second. I have health on kill for the major attribute. I could easily go skill power or something like that, again, to raise it by another about 7,000 up over 230. But I'm not going to be doing that. I think it's good to have at least some health on kill from a variety of locations. It helps significantly with solo play. It's a very strong attribute now with the reduced time to kill on NPCs. Increased kill XP, I would much prefer enemy armor damage. That's really helpful, but it's definitely not going to make or break with the build in its entirety. Moving on to my pads, I have some high electronics pads with armor rolled on them. That's the most important attribute you can get there. You're not going to be going for critical hit damage or anything like that because you're specifically going for really strong skills, trying to reach that maxed out cap. With the diminishing returns on skill power, it's extremely harsh, so sometimes it's kind of hard to judge exactly how much you're going to get. I know that there's some exact calculations, and specifically Marco Style has done an amazing video on the diminishing return system, on skill power in general, and that's something that everyone should check out if they're curious about more of the analytical and numerical side of things. But I know for a fact that stacking the bonuses that I've stacked outside of electronics, I'm not stacking purely electronics, mostly, but not entirely, and then using some percentage skill power bonuses on top of that to reach the skill power that I have consistently and actually go much higher than that in terms of, individual fights. So armor on the pads is very important. Electronics, blind and deaf resistance, burn resistance, and disrupt resistance. I really like disrupt resistance on this because as far as a build goes that centers around skills, that's going to be one of the most harmful things to you. If you're bleeding, that's not quite as bad as not being able to use your skills when your skills account for all of your survivability and all of your damage as well. So moving on to my holster, you're going to roll armor on the holster. That's kind of a no-brainer. There's nothing better to roll right now. And then you're going to want to look for high 900s across the board. That's going to be a really good holster. If you can get 1000s across the board, that's a god roll. Now talking about my gloves, these could easily be Tactician gloves, but right now they're just extremely well-rolled electronics gloves with shotgun damage, critical hit chance, and assault rifle damage. This should be critical hit damage as instead of shotgun damage, but again, they're not perfect. There's more min-maxing that anyone could do with this build to get more efficiency out of it. Now talking about my two high ends. First is going to be Vigorous Chest Piece with a really high electronics roll. I've rolled armor and damage to elites. This would probably be better served as health on kill or exotic damage resilience because your seeker mines can detonate on yourself. And when that does, it's kind of devastating. It really hurts your efficiency in combat. So you're definitely going to want some EDR if you can get it, but I have damage to elites and I had to reroll for armor. So I didn't have the luck of getting it there. Really good electronics roll though, and the vigorous talent means that I can use booster shot, and my booster shot heals for a significant portion, not only to me but to my teammates as well. It's actually going to boost me from nearly dead to a complete full heal and an entire overshield. So it's something really, really valuable to do with a high electronics build. It adds a lot of utility to your teammates. Not only does it give you bonus damage, but bonus damage mitigation, and in the end, it's one of the tools that we're going to be using to be more survivable on this build that may, in essence, look like a glass cannon, but doesn't actually factor out to be one. Now for the backpack, I'm using Inventive. Now there's a difference here. Some people would suggest that I use Specialized, and up till now I've kind of thought that Specialized might be a lot better. However, and since it is a flat 200% of firearms and stamina at all times and not conditional based on how, if you have full health. However, since the amount of skill power that I have is so high, Inventive becomes that much better. the higher your skill power, the more you're getting out of any percentage bonus as opposed to a flat bonus like specialized. So I have gone into inventive here. I've stacked it up with skill power. That could be armor, but skill power, again, is just boosting the efficiency of the build, and electronics. And in the end, that's helping me to achieve this 224,000 static right now when at full health, and it can actually go higher than that, and I'll talk about that in a second. So moving on to my weapons, there's only one weapon that matters for this LVOAC, and the only talent that matters on it is talented. Killing a target with this weapon increases skill power by 15% for 20 seconds. That's another percentage bonus. So increasing this number by 15% for an additional 20 seconds. Now 20 is a long time. 10 is good enough to be competitive. 20 means you can fight a target, you can kill an NPC, and then kind of forget about it. For most of the encounter, you're going to have that skill power active. And it also helps to combat the fact that sometimes when you're not at full health, you're actually going to lose this inventive bonus. But it's okay, because if you can proc talented, then you're kind of trading off. There's a lot of bonuses in this build that are working together to create a really fun style of gameplay, and something that has a lot of utility in a team play setting, as well as some good damage output. So moving on to my skills. Now, what I'm going to be using for the bulk of my damage output is a cluster seeker mine. Now, the cluster grenade, this is per seeker mine, fragment. Now, the cluster seeker mine actually breaks down into smaller mines that seek out multiple targets simultaneously, and I believe that there's 5 or 6 of them. I don't know for a fact, but there's quite a few of them. And once they've all broken down, each individual mine will deal around this much damage. Now, to players, of course, that's significantly less. However, each individual mine that on my end, I've seen it deal anywhere between 20 to 30 to 40,000 damage, which means that I can completely one-shot a player if all of the cluster mines hit that sole player. And what I can routinely do is actually bring 2 targets simultaneously down to less than half health and finish them off with my weapon. This is actually really great for PvE as well. So anyone that's thinking, okay, this is only for PvP, doesn't have any, cross, area utility, that's not actually true. This will seek out and destroy enemy NPCs like they're nothing. It's a really fun build because you can drop and forget, and then it will stagger, it will bleed, it will seek out enemies, and it does a lot of damage. So this received a significant buff in this portion of the PTS, and I foresee it, if it does make it into live game, getting a lot of use. Now, the second skill that you're going to use is your first aid booster shot self-heal. And as you can see, I'm healing for 129,000, and I'm healing my allies for 129,000. That is a significant chunk. That means, if you look at my base health pool, let's go over there for a second. My base health pool is only 96,000, which means I can heal from basically nothing to a full overheal every time I pop booster shot. And because of my significantly high skill power, that means I have a low cooldown on it. And because of the 3-piece tacticians, I have an even lower cooldown on it. 17.9 seconds. It actually is lower than that because I'm boosting my skill power up higher as soon as I'm getting a kill on an NPC. And then the cooldown on my seeker mine is going to be 16 seconds, which is extremely low. Now, this means that I'm firing these things off about twice as fast, if not 3 times as fast, as other players in fights, which means 3 times as quickly as an enemy DPS build. I'm going to have my first aid booster shot healing me for 130,000. That's where the survivability comes from, and because of the damage boost, I can actually compete with them in terms of trading headshots, and I can compete because of the damage resistance I get periodically from booster shot if procced at the right time. So for talents, I'm going to move on. I'm going to do chain reaction because the seeker mines do have an explosion radius, and when you can detonate them on multiple targets, it actually becomes increasingly devastating with every single one that procs. So it's a really, really solid concept. They do have to be quite close together, but in a hectic PvP encounter, when you launch down a seeker mine and there's all those different fragments, 1 or 2 of them will detonate on multiple targets, whether that's a player and an NPC or 2 enemy players, or etc. It will still get the 20% bonus damage on top of the already insanely high per seeker mine damage. Means it's going to be quite effective and can drop people. Now moving on to on the move. Yes, you're going to be using this because the time to kill is so low now. Even with a build like this where you're not spec'd into firearms exclusively, you're still going to be able to drop enemy NPCs, especially the purple and red ones, proc talented and on the move, and get bonus mitigation, and that's where your survivability comes from. And then also critical save. Popping this with booster shot, so popping a med kit when you're in the last health segment and then booster shot on top of that, makes you just as tanky as essentially a tank build, which means that with the extremely low toughness, you can then face trade, actually out damage them with your gun while your seeker mines seek out other players, detonate, stagger, deal bleed damage as well as explosion damage. So it's a very, very fun build in its entirety. Strike Back is the final talent that I run. You can switch this out for something else if you want to, but I do reach low health because the build is squishy at times. I do reach low health rather frequently, which means that the 20% skill cooldowns, faster booster shot, more mitigation, more damage, less cooldowns, etc. And it just helps me maintain my Seeker Mine, active constantly in fights, so I can spam it, get more damage, and then booster shot myself and my teammates faster. And it's a really solid concept. I like it quite a bit. Moving on to my character sheet, just in case people want to see this, we're going to go through all of them. You can pause the video, check out any of my individual stats if you want to, for anyone that's curious, but there's no real gems there. It's mostly just the skill power that's taking front and center with this build, so making sure everyone's seen that. So now I'm going to kick it over to some gameplay and talk about, the tactics that I use with this build, why I do think it works, and why I think it might actually be better on console than it is on PC. But there, is a lot of utility involved with this build, especially in a, group play mentality and setting. Okay, so I'm trying to put more gameplay into my videos for everyone because it's been requested quite a bit. Sometimes if I just do the clips from the live stream, it doesn't end up being enough. So I will try and add extra here so that I can make sure to showcase what the build does and not kind of leave people feeling like they've been let down or left hanging and they can't really see what the build is doing. So right there, I actually detonated a bunch of Seeker Mines. I got some good damage off. I finished him with my gun, and that helped me proc Talented, which is now active, for about 20 seconds. And then, I also did a significant amount of damage with the Seeker Mines themselves. You can shoot the Seeker Mines. Now, this is something important to note. Someone with a good amount of gun skill can actually shoot your Seeker Mines before they get to them. And also here, as you can see, that's just a fun clip because it completely detonated and blew him apart after he had already been dropped by the guns. Also, because the LVOAC is so strong, you have competitive and relevant gun damage against other players, even without your bonuses procced. You can still face trade if you absolutely have to. However, they're typically going to outplay you and out DPS you if you do that. But if you have your Seeker Mine on the ground, you shouldn't be as afraid of doing it because when they get staggered, they stop dealing damage. And while they're staggered, you can be dealing damage from your gun as well as your Seeker Mines detonating as well as the bleed that then procs after. So there's a lot of potential there for stacking the damage on top of each other. Right there, the Seeker Mines do chase down enemies, which means as soon as you drop them, you know where the red lines are. You have a positional advantage. So when you drop down those Seeker Mines and they start to run away from them, you know for a fact that they're actually cut off from running back the same way. They have to either get distance, turn around, and melt them. As you can see there, I did drop when I face traded, and had I been a little bit more careful, I wouldn't have, because all I had to do was dodge one more time, let the Seeker Mines hit him, and then I could have outdamaged him. But, it is competitive. Once those Seeker Mines are on the ground, you have the potential to do a lot of really, really cool plays. But what they need to do, a skilled player will get distance away from your Seeker Mines, and then they will turn around and drop them with their gun. But while they're fighting the Seeker Mine, while they're shooting the Seeker Mine, you can land headshots on them, because you can't really hip fire into the Seeker Mines as effectively. It typically requires you to ADS in order to actually kill them before they get to you and detonate. As you can see here, there are a lot of players, so it's not me killing them with any gun skill or anything like that. It is a group of players focusing them down. But what I want to demonstrate from this clip is that you can run off to the side, kill an NPC extremely easily, and proc your Talented bonus, which increases your skill power, and in reality it goes up. I keep killing some NPCs, keep my Talented bonus procced. My booster shot heals me all the way back up to a full overheal. Again, I felt like, okay, now I need to go get Talented procced again. There we go. Now that I procced it, it's active for 20 seconds. I'm ready to go. It looks like these guys are going to flag. I can tell tensions are high, so I was like, all right, why don't we put down our Seeker Mine and wait for it to happen, because it's the PTS. Everybody's flagging left and right, and then sure enough, they flag. Once they flagged, my Seeker Mine will seek them out on its own. I don't really have to, pay attention to it too much, and you can see a huge amount of damage there. Had I been a little bit more on point with my gun, I would have dropped him, no problem. Now, I did end up dropping him later on, I think, but that's not exclusively because of me. I was in a situation where there were other random players with me, dealing damage as well. But what I'm trying to demonstrate is that in a hectic environment, even by yourself right now, it is survivable. It does have good healing. It has a lot of potential. Now, I can melt targets down. If you are running the Tactical Link signature, you can melt targets easily. I was receiving some help from another player there, but my Seeker Mine was in the works of chasing him down. As you can see down at the end of the block, it did detonate on top of him. There's a 6,000 bleed going now, which means he can't sprint. It means that his effectiveness is reduced significantly. I can land more shots, hopefully. There's a lot of value to it. Let's see, what else? I'm not sure how much more clips I have. Here we go. Yeah, this guy flags. I do chase him up, and this is another example of me trading with him, losing, and then I believe the Seeker Mines drop him. So I don't have enough damage to out DPS him exclusively, but those 3 Seeker Mines land for well over 60,000 damage and a bleed, and he does drop as a result of that. So I did die, but at the same time, I did kill him as well. So now I'm chasing this guy. The Seeker Mines go in, and boom, instantly killed because enough of the individual Seeker Mines procced on the same character. More than 3 or 4, and I think it's an instant kill. Almost all the time, unless they've really spec'd into EDR, which they can do, and EDR does reduce the effectiveness of the build, but it is quite valuable and it has a lot of potential. Now, another thing to note is that this build performs exactly the same way with a Sticky Bomb as it does with a Seeker Mine, if not better. So what you're going to do is proc Chain Reaction. You're going to go for Sticky Bomb damage or Sticky Bomb explosion radius on your performance mods, and you're going to be able to shoot that down pretty frequently and start to do the kind of Tanktician style sticky bombing that you're used to. However, you are not a tank in the sense of the word of 700,000 toughness. You're a tank in the sense of the word that you can proc bonuses at the same time to achieve small bursty style periods of mitigation where you can face trade or survive a lot of people shooting you. However, it's not a 100% guaranteed thing. It requires timing, it requires, you know, strategy and tactics. Otherwise you will go down, because in essence, as a baseline level, the character is quite squishy. The time to kill on enemy players now from a variety of ways is actually shorter than it used to be in PvP encounters. Now it's extremely easy to kill players, especially with a tactical link signature. As soon as you pop that, a really, really tanky build suddenly becomes just, you know, meltable, even if they're meeting the armor cap and things like that. So another example, in that 1v1 scenario, I popped my Seeker Mine and it just cleaned house. It cleaned up, it completely killed him. And that's an example of the Seeker Mine being a lot stronger than it used to be, of a skill that was on the fringes up until 1.4, having relevance in combat, in PvP, you know, opening up the door for diverse builds, and a lot of different encounters, dynamic encounters, using a lot of different mechanics. So, as you can see, I think I go down here. I do pop my signature trying to make a play. I ran out of bullets in the magazine. I wasn't able to aim effectively, and then, of course, I go down because it was, you know, multiple players against me, and I didn't really have a chance. But the build performs. I like it a great deal. And one last thing that I'm going to demonstrate really quickly before I end the video is I'm going to flip it back over and go outside and show you just one thing as I proc Talented, that the bonus can get even higher than it is right now. So currently I'm sitting at 224,000. Let's go proc our Talented third piece weapon talent, and let's operate within the overheal. Looks like someone cleaned all these out. Uh-oh. I'm not seeing any players or NPCs. There we go. So we drop down our Seeker Mine. We're going to let it seek out the enemies here. It's going to destroy him. He runs, and he's gone. I've proc Talented there. Boom, 251,000 now, which means my cooldowns are shorter. It means my damage is higher. It means my heals for more, etc. And this is a really fun build to stack all the different mechanics on top of and achieve different levels of efficiency. I enjoyed it a great deal, and I'm really happy to have showcased it and created it in last night's live stream. So if you liked the video, please check out the links below if you want to support the channel. And as always, guys, have a nice night.